job to take care of our needs, taking it all in stride. Daddy seldom complains. His emotions he'll hide. All his aches and pains stays up in his head about what must be done. Taking no time off. Daddy stays on the run. He's my dad and I love him. With him I have no fear. Because anytime I need him, I know Daddy's right here. Hey y'all, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Daddy's Right Here Live. I'm your host as always, Sabir Aleem, and good morning. Good morning. Another day above ground, and I'm thankful for that because somebody didn't get today. Yeah, somebody did not get this day. Right? So last week, we were talking about the psychology of self, and we left off at number 4. So today we're going to go and move forward with the rest of this article because it's quite a lengthy article. Not only does it list the areas of self, but it also goes into some solutions when trying to address these things. Because the first portion talks about the development of self through the lens and the eyes, the values, the beliefs of others. Because that's where it begins. It begins from birth. Well, it begins in the womb, and that's a whole nother discussion not to have today, but I can do that show. But from birth, that's where it actually begins. Our personalities, already there. There are things that are innate, those things that are already connected to God. There are things that we're going to do. There's a natural order of things. So when we begin to look at what it is that we're doing and how we're doing those things, we always have to go back to childhood because that's where our first frame of self begins, right? And I talked about the misinformation that we get, the bad information that we get, the information is passed on from generation to generation. And you often hear people talk about a generational curse that has to be broken. And, it gets to a point where it begins to be your responsibility. And the earlier you begin to take responsibility to weed out and sort through all this bad information, misinformation that you've been given about yourself, right? The better your adult life will be. And a lot of times people come into adulthood and still never go into addressing those areas of self. It just never happens. And it's been my experience that it doesn't happen. It's been my experience with those people where it doesn't happen. So we have to begin to shape and form a new and original of a sort self. So the fifth one here, and again, it's from the article, What is Knowledge? Let me hold on so I can make sure I tell you where it is. What is self-knowledge in psychology? And there are 8 examples and theories behind it. And the author, Christina R. Wilson, PhD, and this article was put out July 22nd of 2021. So it's real important that you do a lot of reading, especially when you're looking to improve and increase your knowledge and stay sharp as you get older. The more you read, the more your brain stays sharp. Right? But it's also important if you want to develop a further understanding of yourself, because if you keep going to you for the solution and the problem is within you, you don't know where you're going. You don't know how to navigate through self because it's so complex, because the human being is so multifaceted. So you need some direction there. And that's where counseling comes in. Counselors don't tell you how to fix the problem. A counselor guides you towards self-discovery, helping you to understand some of the things that you've experienced and some of the things that you blocked out that you can't recall in particular moments, right? So self-perception is the next thing on that list. So in this category of self-knowledge, we learned about ourselves through observing and examining our own behavior. Our own behavior. And because a human being so much desires to be a part of something, in a relationship with something, or a relationship with a group, right? It's easy to get lost in others' stuff. So you never see your stuff. And we have to begin to look at our stuff first. So part of the process is when it's talking about here, when we looked at the first four steps that we reviewed, where did this information come from? How did I come to this point and seeing myself like this? Like this. And then looking at what that like this is. So last week, I also asked you to write a list, right? A list of 5 things, right, about yourself, right? That you have gotten these messages from others about, right? And the need to change. Some of those things you were supposed to be looking at are things that negatively affect you and others, because you have to look at you and others, because how I affect others is just as important as how I'm affected by my own conduct, right? So when you're observing and examining your own behavior, what does that look like? Well, it's hard to see you, right? So the only way you can really see you is when somebody brings to your attention, points out something you just didn't do, said, or didn't say, right? And the first line of defense is, no, I didn't. I didn't do that. That's not who I am. That's not who I am. No, I didn't. That's not well, that wasn't my intention. Regardless of whether it was your intent or not, it still happened. It still happened. And because it happened, this is an opportunity for you to look at yourself and say, hey, what did happen here? Right? As opposed to the blame. Okay, so she said that I never listened. Was I listening in that interaction? How did I show I was listening? Was I making eye contact? Was I acknowledging? Was I preoccupied with doing something else? Was I looking at my phone? Was I still typing on the typewriter? Well, typewriter. You know how far back I am. Still typing on the computer. What exactly was I doing in that moment? Now that's the external things. What was I doing internally? Did I just shut that person out? Why did I just shut them out? Right? Did I go into anger mode? Did I get annoyed? What happened inside when that person was talking? Because I have to look at those things. I have to look at those things. I have to look at my behavior in that situation. Because people can be annoying. And when somebody's annoying, how do you react inside? How do you react externally? And if you're not observing those things, then you're going to always fall short on finding resolve. And every situation, every interaction will not turn out to be a win-win situation. It will be a win-lose situation. Because you will feel compelled to win and the other person has to lose. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be win-win. I should come away feeling like I was heard, I was listened to, whatever I desired happened. And so should the other person. So should the other person. But when you stay stuck on a win-lose mindset, it will always be a matter of the self beginning to think, okay, I'm never listened to. She never listens to me. He never listens to me. So therefore, I begin to not listen to others. I'm giving them back what they've given me. Or maybe I become aggressive instead of assertive in my approach to certain situations? How about looking at yourself? When does that ever come into play? When does it come into play that you look at yourself and how it, you no, I'm not crying. How it is that you respond to things. Case in point, about the not listening. We're having a conversation. You're looking at your phone. This is something that you always do. The other person's gotten fed up. They're completely and totally angry. They are enraged at this point. Because you do it all the time. Not sometimes. You do it all the time. And then as soon as something is said to you about it, you want to lash out at them. And you want to roll out this laundry list of the things that they do in that moment. Well, you do it too. Well, when we're doing this, you do this. Resolve is found in the here and now, right in the moment. This is what we're talking about right now. And it's hard to get somebody on track when they start rolling out that laundry list because it's a diversionary tactic to avoid responsibility, to avoid accountability, to address the matter that's being presented to them. It's easier. It's easier. Now let's take this to a change mindset, a seeking to change mindset, a mindset of I'm observing and examining my own behavior. I'm hearing what's being said. I'm seeing the rage in that person's eyes. I'm seeing that hurtful look in their eyes. I'm seeing all these things. This is a person now who's been exposed to one of my less endearing traits. Yeah, I don't listen. I'm facing the truth in this moment. Yeah. And I'm getting angry. I'm angry because it's being said. I'm angry because, I know what your problem is. That's why I'm getting angry. I know what your problem. I know I don't listen. I know I cut you off. I know I shut you down. I know I take this intimidating stance because I don't want to confront that area of my own shortcoming. But here I am doing it now. So I'm humbling myself to listen. And it's painful. It's painful to have to hear these things about myself. But I'm doing this examination of self now. Okay. And after that person finishes talking, now's the time for me to disclose why. And it's not an excuse, but there's a reason for things. Every time somebody says something in response to something, it's not always an excuse because there are reasons. And it's at this point that you begin to tell this person what happens to you and why. It's not laundry list time. It's the time to simply say, hey, I listen to a part of it when you're talking. But when it gets beyond a certain point, I feel lectured. Because I can tell you, I'm long-winded. And sometimes I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'm guilty of over expressing. Right? I get long-winded. And it's a possibility I could be offending that other person. Right? But they'll listen because they love us. So the other person is listening to you. They're listening to you what you're saying. Now this is the time when they should be also observing and examining their own behavior from your perspective. From your perspective, they're hearing you out. I'm a person. Tell me what it is. Don't take me. Listen. If we're going to the beach, right? The beach is straight that way. Don't start the conversation off about when the county established laws permitting certain things onto the beach. I want to know where the beach is and that's what's going on. You need to get right to the point for me. Because I get frustrated because I gotta sort through all the other things that you're saying, and it becomes a story about more than just the beach. And it's just like, we were talking about the beach, right? So I'm guilty of that, and I know that. So this is not the time. This is the time to listen. This is the time to learn about one another, because you can't say because I like things to be right to the point that I'm wrong. But if it's affecting you in some kind of manner, you have to look at why is it affecting you that way. Because it may have little to do with me, because it's just a matter of maybe you just take too long expressing yourself. Maybe you do. Or maybe you need to learn how to adapt to that other person's way of thinking and doing things. See, that's where the compromise comes in relationships, right? Sometimes I just have to grin and bear it. I'm like, oh, we go, let me listen. But not show it in my actions, not show it in my statements, but just listen, right? Just listening to the person, making eye contact with them, because people read those kind of things. If you're not looking at me when in this moment, then I know this moment is annoying you. Then what does that do in our interaction? I don't want to talk to you about things. I don't want to say things. Then I try to get it out quickly, but then it comes out wrong. And it's not how I want to express it, simply because I'm trying to do it to satisfy you. Right? So we have to look at all these things, and we always have to look at all of our interactions so we can change those interactions so everybody is comfortable in that interaction. And no, you can't change everything. You don't have to change everything about every interaction. But you do have to always be examining your own self, your own behavior, your own perspectives on things, and see how they are imposed upon others, and sometimes negatively. Number 6 on here, CBT style approaches. So CBT style approaches are cognitive behavior treatment, or in some places, cognitive behavior therapy. I consider myself to be a rational, emotive behavior therapist, specialist. So I feel I am a specialist in this area of cognitive behavior treatment. That's all in my 30-year career. That's all I've primarily used. I've done very little psychotherapy. Psychotherapy involves a whole lot of digging, a whole lot of emotional upheavals. If you open somebody up, you have to be able to close them up. But then it still doesn't address the areas of thinking. Psychotherapy is valid in particular areas. Then I like to move into the cognitive behavior aspects of the treatment, simply because once somebody gets open and they begin to experience all of these emotions and everything, right? The boo-hoo crying and snot and just like really going through it. Now it's time to look at, okay, you see all of these things. Let's see how they play out in your life. So again, here's that list. You write these things down. You write down about this interaction that we were having with how you don't feel listened to. You write down a list of, the things that happen when I'm not giving you the opportunity to express yourself. And you have to begin to look at, okay, what is my belief about this? Call it the ABCs of cognitive behavior treatment. So the A is called the antecedent, or the activating event. What just happened? What just happened between you and I? Well, I didn't feel like you were listening. Okay, so that's the activating event. The activating event, also known as a trigger. B, because we're talking about ABCs, B is the belief. What is the belief about what just happened? Well, I think everybody should do this. I believe that this. So these are all the things that you believe about what should happen in a conversation between you and somebody else. These are all your beliefs about it, right? And you write a list of them, as many as you can think of. You write your whole list based off of this one event. This is all the stuff that came up. Just one event. I was sitting down looking at my phone while you were talking to me, not listening to you. Your belief about that behavior. right? Then you have to go to your C. So your C regards to consequences of that belief. The consequences of that belief. So when you start looking at beliefs, you're looking at the must-itises, I can't stand-itises, the should-itises, like everybody should act this way, everybody must act this way, right? I can't stand when people do such and such, because these are when you start looking at cognitive distortions. It's irrational to believe that everybody's going to act the way you act, that everybody's going to do things the way you do them. It is irrational. And that's a setup for failure already for you. For you. Because you hate when that happens. I can't stand people who do this. I can't stand it. Or I can't stand when he does it. Again, it's still the beliefs. Because in that belief, you also got to look at if this is about the relationship between you and your spouse. There's expectations that you have of your spouse that you don't have of your employer. There's expectations across the board. And the idea is to be consistent. To be consistent. So when you wrote that list, it wasn't just what you thought. It's also about the person, the place, or the thing. So if it's between you and your spouse, there's a reason why you have that belief about your spouse. But don't focus on that in your B list. Focus on that in your C list. Because when you start looking at the consequences of each one of those listed beliefs, you begin to expose your own thinking. You understand what I'm saying? You expose your own thinking. Right? So I'm going to leave you at the ABCs and not take you into the disputation, the evaluation, the formulation of a plan. Right? This is the short version of ABCs. So if you're having some challenges, which we all do, write down the ABCs. A, activating event. B, belief about the event. Right? And C, the consequences of that belief. What are the consequences about the belief? Because it's not the event. It's not the event. It is the belief about the event. Anything that happens in your life, first thing you do is write down what was the event? What happened? Not a long, drawn-out thing. We were having a conversation. In the middle of the conversation, he picked up his phone and started scrolling through social media. That was the event. End of story. What is your belief about that? And that's anything that happens. And then you go to what is the consequence of that belief. Because there's positive and negative consequences about your belief. There's positive and negative consequences about the belief. So don't just go through and just make everything negative in the area of consequences. Right? So just begin to, go down those lists. It's always a matter of writing down a list so you can see things. Stop trying to keep it up here. Write it down. So that's CBT style approaches. And this is what it says here on 6. Another source of self-knowledge emanates from rational analysis of our negative thought processes through approaches similar to and including cognitive behavioral therapy. Right? Cognitive thinking, behavior, the result of your thinking, treatment. It's a process. Teaching you about how you think, right? By showing you your own evidence. Your own evidence. I'm not telling you what the problem is. I'm telling you, okay, let's look at this. What just happened? I got locked up again for DUI. What's the event? What's your belief about the event? And when you write down the consequences of those beliefs, now you'll find out why you got locked up again. Me telling you, you'll justify it. You'll justify it. You'll blame. Here it speaks specifically to a rational analysis of our negative thought processes. Alcohol is legal. I didn't have that much to drink. I was slightly impaired, not impaired enough that I couldn't make it home. Well, the officer he didn't have to talk to me that way when he stopped me. Well, he just stopped because I'm black. Well, yeah, the light was yellow, and as soon as I turned the corner, it turned red, and he pulled me over. Right? Different things like that. Right? Then when you start looking at the law, what does the law say about a yellow light? This was a lesson I learned back in 1996. The yellow light, and it was a $100 lesson. The yellow light means prepare to stop. What do most of us do when we see a yellow light come on? 1996, I got pulled over, stuck in the middle of the intersection because I didn't want to just fall back in the line, wait for traffic to move up. Nope, I got on the back of the line, was in the middle of the intersection, traffic freed up. I proceeded, whoop, whoop, pulled me over. Cop, nicest cop in the world, gave me this whole fatherly lecture. Went back to his car and came back with a slate. I'm like, what was my belief in that situation? Like, dude, you just gave me this whole fatherly talk about I have to talk to your parents. I have to do this and I have to do that. I'm the one who has to go to the home and tell them that you're in the hospital, that you're dead. I'm like, that. I'm in my mind, like, dude's gonna let me roll. He's gonna give me this talk. I'm listening. I'm sitting there being nice as hell at this point because I'm still pissed that he stopped me, but I'm being nice because he's talking to me. Give me $100 ticket. Yeah, $100. Yellow light means prepare to stop, not hurry up before it turns red. But again, what was my belief about that stop? Right? So you have to look at all these things. All of these things are important, right, to your personal growth development. If you are the same way at 15 that you are at 20, at 25, right, there's a problem. If you are the same way from when you were 20 to when you're 30, there's a problem. You can say whatever you want to say. It's called maturity. It's called maturing. It's called human growth and development. There are stages of the human being's development that should always be challenging the individual to raise the bar within themselves. But some people stay stuck in total self-centeredness, which is present in all of our children. And if you take that into adulthood, you're going to find yourself in a lot of conflicts, and you're going to find yourself by yourself a lot. Unless you find somebody who is just like you, who is selfish just like you, because selfish people just go back and forth to keep the drama. Nobody wants to surrender. Everybody's trying to one up the other. So it's a great relationship. It actually works. It does. Because selfish people can't be with grateful people because it doesn't work. Because a grateful person is going to step off. Trust me. So, CBT, look it up, cognitive behavior treatment. And it'll give you the whole breakdown of the ABCs. It'll give you the whole breakdown of rational versus irrational treatment. It'll help you look at those areas of your life because we would like to believe that we're rational in all of our thinking. In all of our thinking. And we're not. We're not. And it's not always intentional. A lot of times it's just because it's the unresolved that forces us, that triggers us to act in a particular way. But until we address those things, we're going to continue acting that way. Number 7, mindfulness techniques. Mindfulness-based techniques help us assess and enhance our emotional intelligence skills, building self-knowledge. Now, I'm going to tell you, I did a show a couple of years back on emotional intelligence. Um, Emotionally intelligent people are difficult for a lot of people because emotionally intelligent people are not ones who you can like make fall for the banana in the tailpipe, if you understand what I'm saying. I consider myself to be an emotionally intelligent person. And because I am, I can be perceived in a negative way. But I'm not going to just let you talk to me any kind of way. I'm not going to let you just keep sliding things by and it goes unsaid, and something goes unsaid. I find the moments, I find a way to get in there and have a conversation instead of always having to. No, right? Emotional intelligence is important. Very difficult relationships with people who are unwilling to change. Very difficult relationship. A very difficult relationship with people who are stuck. That's what makes me a challenge for a lot of people. I don't need instructions. I don't need you. I don't need you to iron my clothes. I don't need you to wash my clothes. I don't need you. I don't need you to do any of those things. I know how to cook and clean for myself. My mother had me iron my own clothes at 9. We were cooking things on the stove at 9. 10 years old. We were already doing those things. We already were aware of how to clean the house. I was exterminating, homes. I think I was like 10. Learned how to exterminate spray homes. I was working. I've been working all of my life. I got my working papers at the age of 13. Back then in the 70s, you can get your working papers to go to work. So I always worked. I always worked. So therefore, because I'm so self-sufficient, it can often be intimidating to others who I'm in a relationship with. Because then they feel like, okay, so what else can I do? What else can I give him? He doesn't need this. He doesn't need that. He's not, all rah-rah about sex. He has a whole different perspective of life, which is more intellectually based, emotional intelligence. Right? So you have to begin to look at those things and understanding, again, the other person is important. It's better to understand than to be understood. When you take the time to understand your partner, when you take the time to understand other people, I'm responsible for supervising a lot of people. I've always been throughout my career. Each one of those situations is unique in itself, regardless of whether the behavior is the same. I have to learn how to approach it. It's not about firing people. It's about retaining employees. It's about retaining good relationships. So that means you have to take the time and you have to learn how to nurture that situation. Even if the end result is you're letting that person go, still you're letting them go with integrity, with their integrity intact, because you find it unnecessary to have to berate, to degrade, to disrespect somebody in that capacity. Which is why, I don't have any beef, no bad blood, between me and my exes. I don't have any beef or bad blood with anybody. I just don't deal with you. Doesn't mean I dislike you. I don't like what you do, so I don't mess with you because you just don't fit into my scheme of living. It's simple. It's simple. But a lot of us are walking around with beefs with people who we live with because of our own stuff. Because we don't want to analyze and examine our own attitudes and behaviors. And I know a lot of adults like that. I know a lot of adults like that. No matter what you say to them, they got an answer for everything. But every time you look up, they're in another conflict, in another confrontation, then a new relationship on a regular basis. There's no commitment time that's there. There's no years. It's maybe a year they might make it, and then after that, no commitment, because they're stuck on themselves. They're totally self-centered. It's all about them. Therefore, they don't change, and they keep blaming everything in the world around them. And I know people like that are in their 50s, 60s, and maybe a little older who are still acting that way because they never shook off the boy. They never shook off the little girl and moved into young adulthood, with some sense of self and direction. Then they go into young adulthood, and then they're just fools. They're just drama driven. These are your drama driven people. These are the people who do absolutely nothing with their lives. Nothing. They try to drive you nuts. They try to suck the life out of you because they want nothing, because they want to do nothing. They're happy with what they're doing, but they want to make you unhappy, because if you're doing more with your life, then it's like they feel slighted. So when you be doing the same thing they do, not be doing, that didn't even sound grammatically correct. When you're doing what it is that they're doing, you're happy because they want to do nothing. Anything that you do outside of them is seen as a threat. It's seen as a threat. And they begin to act. And again, pull out your ABCs. What does he mean? Well, he's always working, right? He works overtime all the time. He's always putting in these extra hours. In the meantime, you're sleeping on this Posturepedic bed that costs like $11,000, and you just rolling around, sitting up on your elbow, talking to your girlfriends, about he worked too much. But you got this bed that, you got to take and pull your elbow about in the hole because it just sunk so far down. Or you got these, 9,000 count, 20,000 count sheets on your bed, right? Come on, So you're living up all of that, but then you want to be there. But then when he's there, what do? You're laying in that $11,000 bed in them Egyptian cotton sheets, talking on the phone. And he's supposed to just lay there and just to be there for what? Because you want him present? Oh, he's mine, all mine. No life, just mine. So you have to look at all those things. So when you start looking at psychological of self, look at the mind games that you not only play with yourself, but you play with other people, because you don't want to take a look at you. Because you develop a self-concept from childhood that you never shook, that you never reshaped, that you never examined throughout your years as you start maturing, supposedly. Right? And that's your life now. So now you're mad at the world because of what you have failed or are failing to do. So no makeup, no cologne, no bling bling, no ooey is going to change that. It's not going to change that. The only thing that's going to change that is for you to do some work on yourself. And yes, people do outgrow one another. They do. Because one continues to grow, the other remains stagnant, right? Because the only thing they sought was a partner to provide for them in that area of their life. But there's nothing, you can't do anything to change a person. You can't love it away. You can't sex it away. You can't buy it away. When a person wants to be in that place, they stay in that place. And they get angry with you when you outgrow that. Because the expectation is that we're always growing. And a lot of people in relationships, they stop growing because they found the love of their life. But the love of your life is not going to continue to tolerate. It's going to continue to tolerate your inactivity on self-development and growth. Because that means we will always argue and debate about the same thing. We will always find the same negative aspect of our relationship constantly resurfacing. Because you're depending on that other person to provide for you something that you should be providing for yourself. something that you should be providing to yourself. We should complement one another. We shouldn't be in competition with one another. You should be focusing on your growth and development. I should be focusing on mine. Relationships fail because it's totally opposite. You're always focusing on changing that person, and that person's always focusing on changing you. And when you have a person who's always focusing on themselves, you're becoming a neighbor, like I have spent many years of my life being. So now I'm recovering from that enabling behavior, and I'm no longer enabling people's conduct. These are things that you have to begin to see. And this isn't just happening as an adult. As a child, I was that way. Wherever I was always helping. I was always doing. I was always stepping in and volunteering. And as a result of that, I was always stepped on. My feelings were always stepped on. My kindness was always stepped on. But I was doing it as a child. I'd be the one to go to the store for you. Right? That's who I was. I'd help carry your books to your house. Right? I do all these accommodating things. And the dude who cared absolutely nothing about you other than just getting a little, some zone, he's the one that would walk up, brush past me, and going on your crib. You do what you do with him, and then you come to me and complain about what he's failing to do. Stuff like that, enabling behavior can get you, right? So, I had to learn how to stop enabling people. I had to learn to stop giving people what they don't want. Trying to move people into a space, a psychological space, a spiritual space where they didn't want to be. You don't want to be there. You're the spiritual one. I'm good. Okay. Well, I'm not anybody's therapist. And sometimes when you're an enabling person, you start like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and start coddling situations. So I've had to get away from coddling situations as well. It is what it is. I had to learn how to stop being silent all the time, right? But strategizing how I'm going to approach things in a less offending manner. This is how you examine yourself. This is how you observe yourself, right? You observe how you feel when you're in certain situations. You get that gut feeling that something just ain't right. That's what you want to observe as well. Something wrong here. Now I think we're gonna stay home today. Something ain't right here. I'm gonna go to another store. I'm not getting a car. Yeah. You feel that when you're around different people. You go into Aunt Mary's house for Thanksgiving. Right? You know Uncle Bob's gonna be there. Already you all up in your head. You're gonna miss out on the meal. Right? You want to be able to enjoy the meal because Uncle Bob was sitting at the table. You're just focusing on Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob, all hunky dory, drunk, having a great time. You sitting around with a wedgie all up in your behind, right? Not even having a good time. And then you leave and you go home and it was just like, I wish he just wouldn't come one year. Like next year, don't come. Maybe you should get sick or die. So I can go there and enjoy myself. Well, he was fine. You're the issue, not him. You have the issue, not him. Right? These are kind of things that you have to start looking at. What emotional intelligence looks like. What it feels like. Look it up. Emotional intelligence. This is how you learn about yourself. Yeah, through others. You learned about yourself through others as a child, as an infant. They taught you about yourself and what they saw. As you get older, you should be seeing something. You should be seeing something as you mature. That's what maturity is. Realizing I'm no longer a child and that I have to enter into this young adulthood, with some sense of self and responsibility and accountability. And I always say to people, no consequence, no growth. no growth. There should be a consequence for everything it is that you do. That's why it's the ABCs are there. Activating event, the belief, and the consequence of that belief. That's a consequence. Yeah, it's a consequence. So the last thing, yeah, so we covered that. So the question that it begs then is, why is self-knowledge important to the article? Self-knowledge is essential for healthy functioning because knowing oneself well leads to realistic decision making pertaining to key aspects of one's life. Healthy functioning. There are a lot of people who are not healthily functioning. They're not. They don't take care of any aspect of their lives. They don't take care of their physical self. They dress their physical self up. They go out the door, they're dressed up. They want people to see them in that light. Oh, you look good. Yeah. Yeah, you got your Fendi shirt on. Yeah. Yeah, you got some Diesel pants on. Okay. Stacey Adams rock. Okay. And that's what you want people to see. That's the Jedi mind trick. But you're not tricking them. You're tricking you. Because they know you're a fool. They already know you're a fool. They already know you don't have yourself together. They already know you. They just telling you look good because they like what you got on. Right? But they already know what it's like interacting with you. They already know what it's like being in a relationship with you. But you're fooling yourself to believe if I put this on, people will think that I'm this and I'm not that. Again, the Jedi mind trick. The Jedi mind trick. You'd be better off just going out in the street with wrinkled up clothes and, the skin on, not the wig. I call it the skin, the cat. Right? You might as well go out. Go out. If you went outside today looking just the way you feel, what would that look like? Think about it. Just think about it. What would that look like? Yeah. So it's one thing for us to get dressed because we're going to a particular place, so it's only appropriate that we wear certain things and we're dressed like that. That's one thing. But when you get up and you're just like rolling along and you all geared up, Gucci down and everything, simply because you want others to think that you are who you are and you have what it is that you don't have, whatever the case is, you're not being authentic. And at what point do you become yourself? Healthy functioning. That means, are you taking care of your teeth? Are you taking care of your weight? Are you taking care of your mental health? Are you taking care of your spiritual health? Are you taking care of your physical health? What are you doing? Because one matter affects every matter. If your teeth are not taken care of and you got cavities in your mouth, that's a medical condition. It's not just a dental condition, it's a medical condition because now you're getting abscess, now you're getting gum bleeding, now you're using all this stuff to try to numb the pain, right? So now this turns into what? A mental issue because it's always there. It's always, you can't function. That's not healthy functioning. It's the same way with weight. If you're overweight, if you're underweight, how does that affect your functioning? If you're not eating right, you're always backed up because you don't eat nothing but a bunch of meat, processed foods, and no fruits and vegetables. How does that affect your healthy functioning? If you're not going to the doctor when you have health, we walk around with health care in our pockets and we pay a lot of money for health care. And a lot of people still don't take care of themselves. When you don't take care of yourself, you affect everybody around you. And it's pure selfishness. That's my belief. That's my belief. If you are not taking care of your health, you affect everybody around you. Because when you get sick, when you turn around, something happens to you because you didn't take care of those things in your body, because you didn't go to the doctor, because you didn't take things as prescribed, and now you can't work. That leaves everything on the other person. That leaves everything on the other person to care for you, to care for your children, to care for the home, to care for the auto that you drive, to care for every bill that's due, because you were too selfish. Because you were too selfish to go be responsible and go take care of yourself. Therefore, you are an unhealthy person. You should always be seeking to be healthy, a healthy spirit. Having faith is not enough. Having faith is not enough. There's people who have faith to go out there and still commit suicide. It's not just about having faith. It's about being whole and healthy as an individual, so you can take faith and use it to its fullest, not just through word articulation. Right? Realistic decision making. Realistic decision making. Some people put themselves and try to put themselves where it's not realistic for you to even maintain. I was watching the show yesterday about these people who won all these millions in lotteries and how they squandered all that money, how they ultimately made all these bad decisions, unhealthy decisions, because they got the money, but they still weren't in healthy conditions to make good, healthy decisions. You got the money, you lost your mind. Maybe you should have spent some of that money in getting your mind right and getting yourself right. Because it didn't take away your conditions. It didn't take away those difficulties that unresolved with you. It didn't take that away. It was just another mask, another layer to keep you from working on yourself. Right? Realistic decision making pertaining to key aspects of one's life. You think if you're sick, you're going to get a healthy relationship? It's a lot of these situations are easy. So if someone has a physical disability, you can see that. Well, that's typically, in many cases, not one who you're going to be attracted to, because you want somebody who you perceive as being whole, healthy. Right? But it's the ones that you can't see that you should be concerned with. It's the ones that you can't see who you should be concerned with. The ones who are sick because they continue to drag through their life with all this unresolved. That bag lady, you gonna hurt yourself, dragging all those bags around. Yeah. And you got bag men too. I ain't talking about the bag men who work up in the spots, you know what I'm saying, in the trap house. Men walking around carrying stuff because they don't resolve their issues. And it's a lot of broken men running around. Yeah, we get broken by these relationships. Contrary to popular demand, we do. I think in many cases we care more than the women do. Yeah, we do. We get broke up when we break up. She a real one. Right? So just start looking at what's important to you. If a healthy relationship is important to you, what are you doing to make yourself healthy and whole? Or are you just in the relationship? Are you just sucking up the love that you so desire and not being healthy, and then expect for the other person to accept it? The expectation is that you're growing. The expectation is that you take care of those things. If I'm constantly telling you to do it, you don't want to do it. Period. And that's part of the enabling aspects I have to let go of. Always telling somebody, but listen, you should go check this out. You should go check this out. You should go check this out. If they don't want to check it out, then you just have to make a decision as to what you want to do about that. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's just going to fall apart. The card's going to fall as they will. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. So that wraps up the episode, right, on the psychological self, right? And again, it's always a matter of just reading and internalizing things. I read things on leadership. I read things on, you know, a lot of things on personal growth and development. I'm in the field, been in the field 30 years. I have to continue to saturate myself with the information. So I stay sharp when I'm interacting with individuals because cognitive behavior treatment is what I do. It's what I do. That's the foundation of what it is I teach my staff and those we serve. It's what I teach. I'm an expert in it. Yes, I'm an expert in it. And I don't say that arrogantly. I say it confidently. I've been doing this 30 years. I didn't just take academic studies and put my books away. I continue to study my books. I continue to study online. When I'm doing these shows, that's part of my studying because I'm also learning. Because I don't read through the entire article. I see the heading and get a little perusal of this. Hey, this sounds like a nice topic, and I rock with it. That's sharpening my blade so I can cut through the nonsense and get right to it. That's how you keep yourself sharp. So this is a matter of me keeping myself sharp, but also providing a free service. Yeah. It's free, right? Come online and listen. Invite some people over. You and your partner watch the show and say, hey, what do you think about that, baby? Some of y'all might, you know, send me comments and say, you know, it's because of you that we're not together anymore. And that would be the time that I would say, well, you know what? We're at the hour. It was great for everybody, you know, to be on the show today. Thank you so much for your support, your continued support. And just know that Daddy's Right Here is live every Saturday now at 9 a.m. Right here, wherever you're watching. Instagram, Spotify, podcasts, Severely Educational Station on YouTube, Facebook at Severely. Man, just look for me. You'll find me. Thank you. I'm your host as always, Severely. Y'all have a great, healthy, and safe Saturday. Peace.